Today, we are living in a social media frenzy world today, where for some parts, they appear to be good for some parts, social media platforms, in the sense that they can be used as tools. And when I say tools, I'm talking about platforms like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. All these appear very friendly on the outlook, as much as they help to a certain extent in reuniting lost family members, even finding organ donors. These are all the good side of it. There are basically meaningful systemic changes happening that you can envisage from using these social media platforms. But unfortunately, people are somewhat naive in today's society about the flip side of that coin. And when you explain to people the usages of these platforms, and they're pretty much used in different ways than you expect on the outlook of things, or you can even imagine that they can be possibly used. So today I'm going to shed some light into that. And if you ask any of the developers that work behind the screens of such platforms, such as Facebook, Instagram, even the directors of monetization, what is the problem? People might be asking. It will be hard for anyone to put in a nutshell, or even be able to place the blame solely on one tech guy or the other. It is almost like a succinct mirage of problems entwined together in one. So what is the problem? People might be asking. Despite facing bigger criticisms, the tech games or the entire tech industry just keeps getting bigger and bigger as we know it, though even under a new level of scrutiny as we know it. New studies have found that there is a link between mental health and social media usage today. So tens and millions of people around the world are hopelessly addicted to their electronic devices. They can't seem to get their fingers off it. Now we find people literally being able to isolate themselves into a bubble thanks to technology, which the world is embracing today. Even platforms like YouTube are now forced to take action towards cleansing their sites today. The big question is social media causing your children depression today? Many of you don't want to hear that. Even young people in this day and age are not even happy with their looks and have an awkward, unexplainable, weird desire to want to change their looks. And even plastic surgeons today have a new coined phrase for that, which they call Snapchat dysmorphia, with young patients wanting to have surgery at a young age. so that young teens can look more like they do in filtered selfies of themselves. A lot of people are feeling disconnected without their electronic devices today. And even now, we have surveillance capitalism taking shape, and this is happening in many ways that people do not even perceive in this day and age. Recently in India, internet lynch mobs have killed 12 people, including, we have even today the propagation of fake news, where it's not just only fake news, but it's also fake news with consequences today. And how are we supposed to have an epidemic in this day and age, in the age of fake news, where you see even videos of people in so-called hibernation coverings, and it almost seems like a staged play on a theater, as a matter of fact. Today we find ourselves going slowly from the information age to the disinformation age, unfortunately for us today. People say that democracy is under assault. People say even the tools that have been at our predisposition through technology and social media usage have started to erode the social fabric of how society should work today. So now it seems that there is almost a new agenda for technology today. And if you ask people what is wrong with the tech industry today, it almost seems like the answer to reel off their mouths, it's a cacophony of grievances and scandals in the making. That's what it is. So where is this all leading us to? The issues like polarization, data being stolen, fake news, speaking of even some elections that were getting hacked into. But the fundamental question is there something that lurks beneath the shadows of all these problems that are somewhat currently in existence, if you like, as we speak today? When you look around today, you almost get the impression that the world around you is going crazy when you look around you today. But the question a lot of people are not asking is this normal, is the question? Or are we all under some kind of spell, if you like? But what a lot of these industrial tech giants are not trying to do is bring an ethical reason to their technology today. And any tech insider who would ever dare to voice such a rejuvenating change can almost to be guaranteed to be silenced by the higher powers. Your Google, even Gmail designers in the background are more interested in luring you more into an addictive syndrome based on how much more color they can add to your Gmail inboxes and set up a somewhat euphoric link to these tools that are at your predisposition. These designers of Google and the likes in the background are making impactful designs that could impact on 2 billion people around the world today. And the age range from the ages of 20 to 35, these designers. And what is their sole objective? So 2 billion people will have thoughts they did not intend to have, and because a designer at Google has said this is how notifications work. Simple as that. Such things as the screen you wake up to each morning, and how many people in the tech industry are taking the moral responsibility of dealing with these issues today. Not a lot of people are. A lot of people around the world admire Google today, and a lot of people see it as a very useful service, even me myself. I use Google to find distances between places I'm traveling to, and I use it as a search parameter for a lot of things, even meaningful words, for example. So it always seems to appear on the outlook that there is a lot of goodness for the world, and even admiration for what Google has done in the platform itself. In not so many words, they have made some kind of parallel money machine which ended up being the envy of other tech giants today. So these companies like Facebook are working on advertising models in order to make more money. Is the basically for a better word, if you like. How many of us are able to control our habits on these social media platforms today that we use? Whether it is to use it for a healthy workout video, or to make a recipe meal, to cook. There is some fundamental good to use narratives that but the darker side of it is you can find yourself quickly dragged into the whirlpool of so many other subliminal suggestions that you never anticipated while you're using these platforms. There is almost a silent cry out for social media platforms to be deleted. And me personally, I am not on Facebook. I'm not on a lot of these social media platforms. I am on WhatsApp mainly, and by the grace of God, I try to use it to propagate the gospel of Jesus Christ. If you speak to investors in these tech companies, some of them would say, such as Roger McManee, say this is the first 50 years of Silicon Valley. The industry made products, they made hardware and software and sold them to companies. But for the last 10 years, the biggest companies in Silicon Valley are now seeming to be in the business of selling their users today. We don't pay for the products that we use. Advertisers pay for the products that we use. So advertisers are the customers in this case, in this Russian roulette game that we're playing. The classic saying is that if you are not paying for the product, then you are the product, as a matter of fact. A lot of people on the surface seem to think that Google is just a search box and Facebook is just a place to see what my friends are doing. You could not be all so far from the truth today. Facebook, or a place where you say you just see photos on Facebook, but the stark reality of it is that it is people don't realize that they're competing for their attention. That's what they're doing. So platforms like Facebook, Snapchat, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Google, Pinterest, Reddit, LinkedIn are all keeping people engaged somehow. And they're all trying to fight to see how much can they be able to get your attention as much as is possible, setting up or almost idolatory image for your admiration. They seem to be gunning for how much time of yourself can you give to them, how much of your life can be dedicated to them. So if you understand how these companies actually work, a lot of services you see are not actually free the way you think they are, because advertisers pay those companies. They pay in exchange of showing their ads to you. So that makes us the product. Our attention is the product that's being sold to advertisers today. So you can say that it is the gradual, slight, imperceptible change in your own behavior and perception that is the product that they are selling. So there is nothing else on the table that can possibly be envisaged as the product that they're trying to sell. That is the only thing that they're trying to make money from, as a matter of fact. Changing what you do, how you think, who you are. So this change is almost subtle, gradual, slight. If you cannot go to somebody and say, give me 20 million and I will change the world 1.1% in the direction that you want it to change. So it is the world that can be incredible, and that is what a lot of money today. Almost like you can say, setting up behavioral control mechanisms to orchestrate the orchestra, if you like, of life-changing mindsets, as a matter of fact. So this is what you can say every business strives for this today, is that they want a guarantee that if he places an ad it will be successful. So that is their business, that they sell certainty today. So in order for you to be successful in that business, you have to be able to have great predictions, which begins with one imperative: you need a lot of data. A lot of data. So this is where people get surveillance capitalism. That's where the word comes from. Where people are profiting on tracking people's behavioral habits, should I say, of everywhere everyone goes by large technology companies today, whose business model is to make sure advertisers are as successful as possible in what they're doing. So this is generating a new marketplace, you can call that trades exclusively in human futures, if you like. You have markets out there that only tend to deal with the oil futures, with the steel industry futures. This is of a different kind. And these human future markets have produced the trillions of dollars, and these have made some tech companies the richest companies in the globe today. As in the Bible says, the love of money is the root of all evil. And that is the truth. What everybody needs to have the stark realization of is everything that you're doing online is being watched, is being tracked, is being measured. So every single action you take is carefully monitored and recorded. You might say, like what? Well, like what image you stop and look at, for how long you look at that image. They know when people are lonely. They know when people are depressed. They know when people are looking at of their ex-romantic partners. They know what you are doing late at night. They seem to know the entire thing you're indulged in. They can even determine whether or not you're an introvert or extrovert, or what kind of neurosis you have, what your personality type is like. They're able to tell all these things online. So you have a great deal of information, more than at any other time you can imagine in human history today. Data collection. All this data that is generated all the time is being, you can say, fed into these systems that have almost no human intervention, supervision whatsoever. And now their predictive modeling just seems to be getting better and better and better about what we are going to do, and who we are is what they seem to be getting better at doing. A lot of people are under the misconception that it is our data that is being sold, when there is little or no gain in doing that. But the data that they have is used to build models that predict your actions. And whoever develops the best model wins the game. So on the other side of the screen, you're almost like an avatar voodoo doll of yourself which has been created and manipulated. So all the clicks you ever made, all the videos you ever watched, all the likes you have ever given are all being monitored, displayed and extracted into a data model for future manipulation. And then the model is being built almost to perfection, if you like. And once attained, so that they can almost predict what kind of videos you like to watch, they can predict what kind of emotions tend to trigger you. So a lot of these companies have the engagement role to keep you continuously clicking away. Then there's the growth goal, to keep you coming back and inviting as many friends. And then there's the advertising goal, which is done so that as much money as possible can be generated in advertising while you're doing all these other things. So each of these goals are empowered by algorithms whose job is to figure out what to show you and when to show you. Facebook, they'll be discussing things like having to dial those ads, if you like. Since they want more users today, then let's dial up the ads to that effect. So dial up monetization just slightly, if you like. So there is almost that level of precision on these companies and how they operate. So we have created a world where online collection becomes primary, especially for the younger generations today. So anytime two people connect in this world, the only way is financed is through a sneaky third person who is paying to manipulate those two people. So a whole generation of people are created and raised almost within a context with the very meaning of communication as the essence, where the very meaning of culture is also integrated into this. So we have a bit of deceit and sneakiness at the absolute center of everything you're doing online. There is a saying that any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable when compared to magic, if you like. These demonic magicians understand almost part of your mind and how it works, which differs from doctors or lawyers or people who know how to build 747s or jets, missiles or nuclear missiles, who do not seem to know how more about how their own mind is vulnerable. It is almost like a separate discipline, if you like, and one that applies to all human beings today. They're studying about how to know about the psychology and what dissuades people and build that into technology. Thereby using technology to modify someone's behavior, wanting them to keep doing this with their fingers, flicking through the screens, pull down and refresh, and it's almost like there's going to be a new thing on the top, keeping you constantly engaged. And the coin phrase for that in psychology is positive intermittent reinforcement. That's what it's called. So you don't even know whether or not you're going to get something, and it operates just like a slot machine in Vegas, or in the gambling world of Vegas, if you like. So it's not just enough for you to use the product. They plan to dig deep into your brainstem and most implant in it inside of you. So users will develop an unconscious habit and are even being programmed at a much deeper level. So every time you look at the counter, there might be just something somebody has for you. It's almost like you pick your phone up and you click on that slot machine to see what you got. And this is not by accident. This is a design that they have particularly put into force. So if you get some information that your friend just tagged you on a photo, of course, you're going to click on that email to look at the photo. So it's not like something you're just going to ignore. It's more like part of your personality they're tapping into. What you should be asking yourself is, why does that email don't just contain a photo in it? It would be a lot easier for you to see the photo in the email than for it to take you somewhere else. There's a field called growth hacking, where teams of engineers' job is to hack people's psychology. That's what their job is, so that they can get more user sign-ups, they can get more engagements, etc., etc. All the clicking, the objective is to get one individual to 7 friends in 10 days. That's how they spread it. These good tactics have been used to also drive up Facebook to incredibly high speed, and that's why it's been so successful. And it's extended into other companies like Uber, and even it was pioneered and used in the scientific aid and testing. Facebooks are now rolling out tiny different experiments which they are running on users, and over time, by running these constant experiments, so this is where you get users to do what you want them to do in the most optimal way, if you like. This is called manipulation. And almost you get the feeling, now as I'm speaking this to you, that you are like a lab rat being used by these tech companies. It's not a lab rat to find the next cure for cancer. It's not like they're trying to benefit you from what they're doing. Far from it, as a matter of fact. They are just seeing you as zombies. That's what they're seeing you as. That can be got to look at more and more ads so that they can make more money as a result of that. They conducted what they call massive scale contagion experiments. How they can use subliminal cues to get more people to go out and vote in the midterm elections. And they found out they were able to do that, and thereby discovering they can fake real world behavior without even triggering the user's awareness as a result of that. It's almost a kind of reverse engineered way. The aim is to keep stimulating nerve cells and keeping you constantly engaged and what lengths you can actually move that spider. And then roping people into the matrix, if you like. And when you're in there, it's hard to get out. So harvesting all this money and data, they are using it for ulterior motives. How they can psychologically manipulate your screen as quickly as possible and give you back that dopamine effect when you're online getting hooked. It's almost like hackers, if you like, who are exploring the vulnerability of human psychology. That's what these social media platforms are doing. And if something is not deemed as a tool, it's demanding things from you. That's what it is. So it's almost like seducing you or manipulating you. It wants things from you. That's what these social media platforms are doing. Moving everyone away from a tool-based technology environment into an addiction, manipulation-based technology environment. That's what they're doing. So social media is not just a tool waiting to be used. It has its own goal and it has its own means of pursuing those goals. But a lot of people are not fully aware of that, as a matter of fact. And these social media platforms are hooking you into an addictive syndrome, keeping you building idolatory images that are steering you away. Now, there are two industries that call their customers users: illegal drugs and software. Those are the two industries. So even people where their kids need their love and attention are not able to take themselves off these social media addictions. Even people have tried to use their willpower and not been able to do things like bringing the phone into the bedroom, or even tempered in some cases, to quell this habit, if you like. So social media is a drug, a basic biological imperative to connect with other people, which directly affects the release of dopamines in the reward pathway of our brains. Even today, parents are fighting their children about the amount of time they are spending on computers or programs. The design behind them works on the basis of algorithms that just tells you what is the next video you should be clicking on. Not designed by child psychologists trying to find a way to nurture your children to better health, better living, or better thought processes, better actions, better behavior. That's not the objective. It's almost stealing the self-worth of our children today. We are not evolved as human beings to have social approval being dosed to you, and at a rate of every 5 minutes. That is not at all the objective in life should be. So people today are curating their lives around this deceptive sense of perfection. When you are getting thumbs and likes, they conflict the truth of the matter with your need for approval, constant approval, and validation from people is what these social media platforms are driving you to. So this is just fake, brittle popularity that is short-term that leaves you even more, and admit it, even in some cases, people feel suicidal, giving you vacant and empty before you even did it. More vacant and empty, as a matter of fact. From this forces you into the vicious cycle of what is the next thing that you need to do now, because I need that dopamine effect back. So to compute that to a scale of 2 billion people and think about how people react then to the perception of others. Depression and anxiety have increased, which began almost around 2011 and 2013. Amongst 100,000 girls that were admitted into hospitals every year because they cut themselves or otherwise harmed themselves, the curve shows that 62% for older teens, it is up by 189% for the preteen girls. That is more staggering, is that the suicide rates of 1 million girls between the age of 15 to 19, it is up by 70% because of these social media platforms. And compared to the first decade of the century, and the preteen girls who have very low rates to begin with are now up by 150%. And these patterns point to social media, Gen Z, the kids born after 1996 or so. And these are the first generation of kids that got on social media How do they spend their time when they come back from school and then they're on their devices? That's what, thereby leaving a whole generation which is more anxious, more fragile, more depressed. As a matter of fact, they are much less comfortable taking risks at which they might be getting driving licenses have been dropping. Even those who go out on a date or a romantic date, or not to condone that, because the Bible is strictly against fornication, but those who want to go out and socialize have dropped rapidly. And you can imagine what is going down now with this lockdown period, where suicide rates is also increasing dramatically. The more people indoors, the more people indoors are less encouraged to even go out. And for every hospital admission, there's a family that is traumatized and horrified as a result of these hospital admissions. And it is plain as day to see that these so-called social media services are killing people and causing people to kill themselves. But people don't want to hear that, do they? I just want to emphasize that technology companies manipulating their children, making them compare themselves to unrealistic standards of beauty. There used to be barriers in a certain place when they said you cannot advertise to aged children in these ways. That means those who are watching the Saturday morning cartoons, you can't throw advertisements at them. But those